Where do I even start? Yes, Wonder Woman 1984, or WW84, is finally out, and today I'm going to give you my review for it. And just so you know, this is a spoiler video. Spoiler filled. I'm going to spoil the hell out of this movie, because I cannot explain the absolute insanity of this movie without telling you what happens in it. It's that wacky, it's that wild, it's that bad. I have to spoil it. Spoilers out the ass. So there you go. Here's your spoiler warning. If you don't want spoilers, this is your time. I'll give you a few seconds. Alright, now for you who want to be spoiled, here we go. Because, yeah, I have some things to say about this movie. So, before I go into a spoiler-filled deep dive of this movie, here are my spoiler-free thoughts. Spoiler-free review for Wonder Woman 1984. Ah! Oh my god! My eyeballs are melting! Ah! I suggest you do not pay money to watch this movie. There you go. So the movie starts off with a pretty decent scene actually, where it's a flashback of Wonder Woman and Themyscira running an obstacle course with a bunch of other women. She's in the lead, she's beating them, she's jumping over stuff, she's leaping through holes, she's ducking, dodging, diving. And she ends up winning the race, and her aunt tells her, you can't win because you cheated, and then her mom comes down because she's crying, and she tells her that truth always wins, and she gives her some lame generic speech about truth and lies, and it was a good scene, and I actually really loved the music in this scene. That's one of the best parts of this movie, was the score. But the movie doesn't really go back to this scene at all. It's trying to give this message of truth, and the truth comes through, and it's not good to lie, it's not good to cheat. But this flashback scene really had no place in the movie, because the overall theme of the movie was, be careful what you wish for, it might not be what you want. But this scene isn't talking about that. It's talking about truth and lying and cheating and doing things the right way, and it doesn't really fit in with the narrative of the rest of the story. And that's one of the big problems of this movie, is that there are so many different scenes with no connectivity to each other. They don't connect to each other in a natural way. And this first scene, it's good when you're watching it, but then the movie ends and you think, wait, why was that flashback the opening scene? Because it has nothing to do with anything else. It's just thrown in there at the beginning to, I guess, give us an action scene, which, okay, but it doesn't service the movie. And the obstacle course didn't really make any sense at points. I was wondering why they were doing certain things at certain moments, and why are they doing that, but she's doing that, and isn't she faster than a speeding bullet? Can't she grab bullets out of midair and block them and run faster than them? Why are they running so slow in this obstacle course? They're running at human speed, but I thought she could move almost as fast as Superman. So that was just one of the little problems that is indicative of what's to come. Unnecessary scenes and inconsistent characters. But, you know, overall, it wasn't that bad of a scene. It was harmless, it was kind of fun, and I thought it was a pretty good opening to the movie. But then, oh my gosh, I could not believe the scene that came after that. I could not believe the mall sequence. The next part of the movie was genuinely hard to watch. It embarrassed me. It gave me bad goosebumps. It gave me anti-goosebumps. It was so corny. I was embarrassed to be a human. I get what they were trying to do with the Richard Donner Superman tone and making it light and fun, and they were trying to make it feel like it was a movie that came out of the 70s or 80s, but good lord, it was so incredibly bad. This upbeat, wacky music is playing, Then Wonder Woman kicks the front end of a car and makes it spin, and the guys are like, oh! Then a woman in a wedding dress gets knocked over a railing and is about to fall to her death, and Wonder Woman lassos her up, saves her, and she goes, oh! Then she goes to the mall, and this group of men are at this random jewelry store robbing it, and the guy goes up to the cashier and says, word on the street is that you got some black market material in here. Okay, that's kind of random, but it turns out they do. They get the material, then they're getting out, and one of the guys drops his gun, so they start screaming, everyone starts panicking, and then cops show up and point guns at them, and there's like a little chase. And then one of the jewel thieves actually grabs a little girl, like a Saturday morning cartoon villain, and dangles her over a balcony like Michael Jackson and that baby. And he is screaming, I won't go back to jail, I won't go back to jail, while he's dangling this innocent girl over this balcony. And it came out of nowhere, and the people's reactions, and the way it's edited, and the way the music is, and the way it's acted, it is so corny, and so cheesy, and it's not endearingly cheesy, it's not fun to watch, it is wacky, out of nowhere, cartoon, otherworldly, crazy, wacky. It's so hard to watch. I cannot believe this scene and how bad it was. And then Wonder Woman shows up. The way she takes him out is very slapsticky. She grabs the girl and slides her, and the girl goes, whee! Then she grabs one of the guys and throws him, and he goes, ooh! Then she's running, and she's kind of sliding, and it looks like she's gliding on nothing, like she's on ice skates. It's ridiculous looking. It's so wacky. It's so unbelievable. Everything that was grounded from the first movie, throw that away. Throw that in the trash. This movie doesn't give a about reality. This movie just wants to have fun, and it doesn't care how stupid it is, and it shows. The humor doesn't work, the acting doesn't work, the editing doesn't work, the action doesn't work, the directing doesn't work, the music doesn't work. Nothing in the first 15 minutes of this movie works at all. And it is a really, really bad start to a really bad movie. And you know, instead of kind of just wrapping them up and giving them to the police, she ties them up and drops them from 30 or 40 feet in the air onto a cop car, which could have killed them. But of course, in this movie, it doesn't. So after that garbage, we're finally introduced to Barbara Minerva. And you know what? I was a little wrong in my last video when I thought that she was going to be an all-time terrible villain. She's actually not all-time insanely terrible. She's just bad. She meets Diana and she's stumbling over stuff. She drops her papers. Nobody will look at her. Nobody will talk to her. Nobody will help her. It's the same Jim Carrey Riddler, Jamie Foxx Electro, I'm a loser, nobody cares about me shtick that we've seen 5 or 6 times. And it's really nothing new. That's the worst part about this, is that her performance isn't terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. But it's just nothing new. There's nothing interesting, there's nothing engaging about her character at all. But after that, we get about 20 or 30 minutes of really nothing happening. I mean, there are scenes with people in it speaking to each other, but nothing is really happening. There's nothing of substance on screen. I've never been so just disinterested in a movie with so many characters doing so many things. Wonder Woman goes out to dinner by herself and is lonely and sad about Steve, and she looks up at a plane and is sad about Steve, and then she goes out to lunch with Barbara and they talk, and then people just walk around and talk and nothing really happens. But don't worry, the second half of this movie will make up for that. So Barbara and Diana come across this jewel at work, and when they touch it, it's a MacGuffin. You wish for whatever you want, and you get it, basically. That's basically what the whole plot's about. Touching the stone, making a wish, getting that wish, and then regretting it. And at this point, this is when the movie gets really funky and really confusing. It makes people change, it makes people die, it makes things appear out of nowhere. So she wishes for Steve Trevor to come back. And how this happens is she goes to a party, a random stranger walks up to her and is like, "Diana, it's me." And he gives her the quote that he said in the last movie about, "I can save today, but you can save the world." And she's like, "Who are you?" And we're like, "Who are you?" And he's clearly another guy. It shows him for 2 or 3 minutes. Then the camera turns, and they do that trick where the camera turns, and then when it comes back, it's somebody else. And when it goes around her head, it's magically Steve now. So he comes back, his personality, in another person who has a real life, but he's not that guy anymore. He is now Steve. Diana doesn't question this. She's just happy. This guy no longer exists, but Steve, it feels like he's in his body. He's the Steve that we remember, but he doesn't know what year it is. The other guy disappears, and I don't know. I mean, this could have been done so much better. He could have come back and they could have given us some suspense, like, how is this happening? We know it's by the wish, but how is it happening? Is he back from the grave? Is he somebody else? Is he in her head? But they show us the guy, and then they change his face, so we know exactly what's happening, and it's still confusing. So yeah, Steve Trevor's back, and he honestly is one of the best parts of this movie. And oh yeah, that reminds me, on a side note, this movie clearly does not like men. No joke. Literally every time Diana or Barbara walk through a crowd of people, every man is going, "Huh?" Or they're catcalling them, or trying to sexually harass them, or assault them, or they're being liars, or thieves, or bad people, or going, "Sugar mama, give me some of that, They actually have a scene where Barbara is walking home from work, and a generic drunk guy on the side of the road comes up to her. He's like, "Girl, you look cold. I want to walk you home. Come on." And she, of course, says, "No, thank you. No, thank you." And they just have to pound it in our head. This guy's bad. Men are trash. Men are pigs. "Ooh, baby, come on, baby." He starts grabbing onto her, puts his hands on her, starts shaking her. It's comically cartoonish and ridiculous. I mean, come on. You know, I don't really care. I don't get triggered over stuff like this because this isn't my movie. They can make it however they want. I just think the script is dumb, and I just had to say it. Just an observation. Which brings me to another observation, which is, this is a movie that is supposed to be inspiring to women. It's supposed to be empowering to women. It is a woman's film through and through, made by a woman. That's all well and great. What they tried to do, they failed at, because the two best characters in the movie are men. And I don't care. A good character is a good character, and a bad character is a bad character. I don't care who you are, what gender you are, what race you are. A good, compelling character comes from good writing, good directing, and good acting. It genuinely disappoints me that they couldn't even get that aspect right. I don't care who's directing it or who's in it. I want good direction, good cinematography, good writing, good acting. I don't care if it's Gal Gadot. I don't care if it's Henry Cavill, Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. I want good performances. But the people making this movie, they obviously care. They obviously want it to be a woman movie, which is fine by me. But they can't even get it right and make women compelling. The two main women characters in this movie are not great. They're not well acted. They're not well directed. They're not well written. It's lame. It's cheesy. It doesn't work. And this is why people think that women movies can't make it in Hollywood. Any superhero movie can be good, but you're making women look bad with garbage movies like this. If you want to complain and cry and whine about how women are not in enough superhero movies, then when you get the chance to make one with a woman superhero and the main villain being a woman, do not make it garbage. God, it's that simple. You are getting chances and blowing them. Which brings me to, hands down, the best character in this movie. the only reason that I kept watching, the only thing that made this movie salvageable and watchable was Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Yes, he was amazing. He was so compelling and fun to watch. Yes, that guy was awesome for most of the movie. His setup as a failing businessman who is basically just a TV personality now, who just wants to impress his son, who just wants to become something, was so relatable, and there was something that I could connect to with it. He's not really a good guy, but you understand where he's coming from, and his performance was so good. The way that he walked around with this attitude of this TV personality man and this big businessman, the way he carried himself and talked to people and joked around and pointed at people when he walks by. We all know those people who you see him and they point at you and have a little catchphrase. He was great. He was funny, he was electric, and he was hands down the best part of this movie. And I think the other best performance in this movie was Chris Pine as Steve Trevor. Yeah, his story and the way he came back and that whole arc was ridiculous and silly, but you know, he did a really good job in this movie, and he was very endearing. It did seem like that when he was on screen with Gal Gadot, he actually made her a better actress. They actually had a good little bit of chemistry and nice little banter with each other that it was nice to watch, but I don't know, the whole thing was just so unfulfilling because of how he was back, and I knew that it meant nothing to the story. It's supposed to be building to this big emotional moment where she has to let him go to save the world, but she can't do it because she loves him so much. But it was just hollow to me. It was okay, but it didn't work. Really, nothing they did in this whole movie, other than Pedro Pascal, really worked. Even including most of the action scenes, if Steve Trevor or Maxwell Lord wasn't on screen, the movie was just kinda boring. Now, before you start typing in the comments trying to destroy me for my opinion, let me get out some things that I actually liked about the movie. There were a couple moments that were actually good. I'm not just blindly hating this movie. If something was good, I will address it. I really liked the music for the most part. I really liked Maxwell Lord. I thought it was really cool seeing the invisible jet. But you know what? Even when I'm trying to think of good things about this movie, it just keeps bringing me to how inconsistent this script is. My God, it's so stupid. Okay, so Steve and Diana go to basically steal a jet so they can go across the world and keep the plot going, keep the plot moving, so they can find Maxwell Lord and stop him. That's all good and well. But when they get to the jet, I don't care that she made it invisible. That's actually more believable than Chris Pine, after being in the cockpit for maybe 2.5 minutes, knowing how to fly a jet from the 80s. He was in World War I, actually. So it's been like 60 or 70 years since the last time he flew a plane. And he gets in the cockpit of this jet, this new modernized jet, and he starts flipping switches and he goes, huh, okay. He starts easily flying this jet that is 70 years advanced from the technology that he knows. And we're supposed to just roll with it because it's a nice moment. Yes, them going over the clouds and her making the jet invisible. It was nice. It was a good moment. It was a good scene for them. It was a slow scene that wasn't a boring scene. Finally, we get a slow scene. We get a scene period that isn't boring. It's building a little character. It's kind of fun to watch. There's chemistry. There's some good writing there. There's some good plot. And they still can't manage to get away from how stupid the script is. I'm sure that a lot of Wonder Woman fans were really happy when they saw that the invisible jet was actually happening. But good Lord, how it happened. I couldn't be in the moment because I was thinking of how stupid it was. How inconceivable it was. So yeah, the invisible jet was cool. I actually thought that, what's her name? Oh yeah, Kristen Wiig. I thought that she wasn't as bad as I thought she was gonna be, even though she is still pretty bad and she progressively gets worse and worse as the movie goes on. But, you know, she wasn't terrible, I guess. And I also really liked that when Wonder Woman wished for Steve back, she started losing some of her powers. So she was actually vulnerable. She started getting shot. She started to bleed. She looked messy. Her hair was getting crazy. She looked like she was going through some shit. I actually thought that that was a really smart idea because previously in the last movie, she felt so invincible that in the No Man's Land scene, when she's walking through there, you know the scene where she's walking and it's so cool in slow motion and she's holding the shield up against the bullets. I didn't love that scene because she had nothing to lose in that scene. She was impenetrable. She could block bullets. She was so super fast. And it really felt like she had no stakes in that scene. What did she have to lose? Now she actually feels like a real person. She can bleed. She can get hurt. In these scenes, she's actually struggling really hard to defeat the bad guys. And I thought it was a really nice change of pace and something that they really, really did well. I know she's Wonder Woman and you can't do that for an entire movie, but because of how invincible she's been, it was really nice to see, honestly. But yeah, that's it. I really can't think of anything else that I liked in this movie. And whew, this leads us into the third act of the movie. This was insane, and not in a good way. So, after all of the wishing tomfoolery, Maxwell Lord wishes that he becomes the gem, and he starts to grant all these wishes to different people. He travels to different countries, gets people to do stuff for him. He now owns half of the world's oil. He gets the president to wish for more nukes. For some reason, people start wishing a bunch of crazy stuff, and riots start happening in the street, and people are going crazy, and it seems like the world is ending, and we're going into World War III, and missiles start launching, nuclear missiles start launching towards Russia, they start launching missiles towards us. It gets out of hand very quickly, and Diana realizes that she has to kill him, she has to stop him, she has to destroy the gem, which is now Maxwell Lord, but she can't really do it if she doesn't have her powers. So there is this moment where she's on the street in the middle of a bunch of rioting out of nowhere, and she has to tell Steve Trevor goodbye. And it's supposed to be this big, grand, emotional moment. But it wasn't. They're holding each other's faces, and he's telling her that she knows what she has to do, and she's crying, and I can't do it, I can't do it. And she's rubbing his face, and he's rubbing her greasy face. And I will say that this was the best acting that Gal Gadot has probably ever done. She actually gave a different face other than... And it was nice. It didn't seem like she was just posing into the camera. She was actually trying to act. It wasn't believable, but she was trying, and I'll give her that. This was probably the best that she's ever been. Still not great, though. That doesn't matter. She tells him goodbye, walks away from him, and then she says, I rescind my wish. I take it back. You see the blood disappear from her. She starts feeling stronger. The music swells. And then it's supposed to be this amazing turning point in the moment. And this was supposed to be like the hell yes moment. Oh, I knew when they were writing this and shooting this, they were thinking, this is the moment in the movie that's gonna grip the audience. This is the moment, man. This is the moment to cheer. But it was terrible. It was absolutely cringy. She starts screaming, and then she just takes off running. And the running looks so weird, and the CGI was so stiff. And then she lassos onto this clock tower, shoots up into the sky, and then she just starts looking around. She's falling and looking around, and then there's an airplane that is, I swear, at least 1,000 feet away from her. It's gotta be at least 1,000 feet away. And she takes her lasso and lassos onto it and starts swinging behind the plane. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just my ignorance, but didn't it seem like in the last movie that the lasso, yes, it's magical, it can do crazy things, but isn't it kind of realistic, like the physics of how it works? It works like an actual rope. It doesn't just float around and have its own mind. It can't just stretch out 1,000 feet. Is that just me wondering that? Genuinely, I'm asking, am I just stupid here? Can her lasso magically stretch 1,000 feet and grab stuff? Can her lasso actually stretch out that far and grab things from thousands of feet away? I mean, we see it wrapped around on her side. It's not that long. I don't know, because she uses it to literally grab a bullet out of midair at one point. But even that was almost believable because she was only 30 or 40 feet away from it. But when she leapt in the air and grabbed that plane with her lasso, it just totally took me out of the moment. Even more than her screaming and jumping and the bad acting. Just, this scene gets worse and worse and worse, and let me tell you how it gets even worse. She lets go of the plane, leaps into the air, she's above the clouds, and she remembers when she asked Steve about flying and how does he do it, and he tells her you just have to be one with the sky and feel the air and you just have to ride it. And just remembering him saying, hey, you gotta... He verbally tells her his description of flying, and she just starts flying. I mean, am I missing something here? Or is the script missing something here? You can't just tell someone, hey, this is how you do something that is literally impossible, that we haven't seen any other Themyscirian do, and then just be, oh, so that's how you do it. I just gotta feel the wind. I gotta feel the air. Okay, here I go. Yes, I know that Wonder Woman can fly in the comics. I'm okay with her flying. But like this, it's supposed to be this grand, awesome moment, and it falls so flat. It couldn't have fallen flatter. She starts floating there, and then she just propels herself forward like Superman and starts flying. Then she sticks her arm out like Superman, and then she gives the model face. And it is so, so bad. I verbally laughed out loud, man. I laughed out loud. When I was supposed to have chill bumps, I was laughing. This was unintentionally one of the funniest parts of the movie, and that's not how it was supposed to be. And then, when you think it can't get any worse, when you think it can't get any cringier, she literally takes her lasso, grabs a hold of a cloud, and propels herself forward for more speed. And I could not believe my eyes. I had to pause the movie, stand up, laugh some more, collect myself, and then get back to the movie. Because now you are completely breaking physics. You're breaking all believability. The script is broken. This moment is broken. It's insane how stupid it is. I truly hope that you enjoyed this moment. If you did, if you felt like this moment was very powerful, it gave you chill bumps, you were seeing Wonder Woman fly for the first time, if you thought it was wonderful, good for you. Genuinely, I hope that you loved this movie. But good Lord, it was bad. And then, when you think it can't get any worse, when you think the cheese, the cringe, the bad writing, the bad acting, the bad CGI, the bad editing, the bad pacing, the plot holes, the stupid characters, when you think that it all can't get any worse, it does. Yes, the beginning of the movie was super cheesy, super wacky, super crazy, but in the middle they did try to have some scenes with some levity to it, some character. They tried to have some realistic moments. But in the third act, they totally gave up. They took the script and they threw it out the window, and they just start making stuff up. I can't even explain how dumb the last 45 minutes of this movie really is. It is so terrible. This part of the movie is all-time terrible. It's one of the worst final acts in a superhero movie ever. And that's saying a lot because we've had a lot of bad final acts. This makes the final act of Wonder Woman look like Citizen Kane. It makes it look like a masterpiece. Diana starts literally lassoing, grabbing a hold of lightning bolts, and swinging from them like she's Spider-Man. At this point, I have just lost all sanity, and my backup brain functions are carrying me through the rest of the movie. I mean, Maxwell Lord's overall evil plan is to get these array of satellites that can beam particles down to have people touch him so that he can have everyone in the world at the same time make wishes. And he is going to use the bad part of their wish, you know, the part of you make a wish but it takes something from you. He's going to take things from them to stay alive, to stay healthy, to be immortal, it's truly astonishing how low this character gets, because he was compelling at first, he was good at first, you liked him at first, and then they turn him into this big, evil, I want to be the ruler of everything. He literally starts spouting out terms like, it'll just be me, I'm gonna be here forever, I'm immortal. He starts screaming out evil, generic, bad guy lines, and it's the exact place that you didn't want this movie to go. And I just watched the movie yesterday, and I can't even explain what his plan is. I can't explain how it works because it wasn't explained well to me. Guys, the directing isn't great, the editing, the acting, it's not great. But damn, this script is terrible. This script is the root of all of the problems. Things just do not make sense in this movie. But with all that being said, he's on his way to some island to get in front of a camera so he can get on every TV and computer screen in the world to talk to everybody. Generic bad guy, evil plan. I want to get on all the screens and talk to everybody. And he's on a helicopter with Barbara. And he asks her, what is your wish? What is your second wish? What do you want? And what do you truly want? And she says, I want to be top dog. I don't want to be like anybody else. I want to be an apex predator. And okay, once again, this doesn't make sense. It has been implied multiple times in this movie that you only get one wish. He even tells his son, when his son tries to wish something, he grabs him and says, no, don't use your one wish on that. Think before you make your wish. He doesn't say wishes. He doesn't say you get 3. You don't get 2. Out of nowhere, just because we need Barbara to turn into Cheetah for a big fight in the final act, she gets another wish, which is once again an example of the script not even realizing what it did before. It's inconsistent. He gives her a second wish. He uses particles to beam himself into other people's heads and give wishes, and yes, this is another thing. Once he successfully starts getting people to wish things, you hear voices. I wish for this. I wish for this person to be dead. I wish I was a king. I wish I was rich. I wish I had a chocolate pie. Whatewish. I wish. It is established earlier in the movie, Diana says that you wish something, but it takes what is most valuable to you. It took Barbara's humanity, her kindness. It took what meant the most to her. When Diana made her wish, it took her powers, what meant the most to her. But then, when all these people are making these wishes, he starts laughing maniacally and he's like, I take your strength, I take your power, I take your vitality, I take your youth. And he starts healing. He starts taking things from these people that may not mean anything to them. And it's once again inconsistent with what the script has established. It was established that you get something, but what is most valued to you is taken away. But then, in the final act, because they needed it to happen, he starts taking and picking what he chooses from people. Like, he decides what he takes. Well, maybe youth and vitality and strength isn't what's most valuable to that person who made that wish. So you're breaking the rules that you already established, you dumb ass movie. God, it's truly unbelievable that this movie was made in the state that it is. It seems like this was a first draft. It genuinely seems like this was a first draft of the script. But okay, we're not done yet. Barbara literally walks off screen. And then when we see her again, she's Cheetah. And it's so bad. It's so cringy. Like, we couldn't even have gotten a transformation sequence. You gotta be that lazy, that bad, that disappointing. I mean, they couldn't even have shown how painful it was to turn into this cheetah, how much of a curse it was. No, it just cuts to her and she's standing there looking at Diana. And then they do a close-up on her face going like this, like, what's up? And it is so freaking cheesy. Then, yes, like we've all seen in the trailers, like we were all worried about, Diana gets her golden eagle armor, which I'm not even going to get into it. It's a plot device. There is one flashback explaining it. That's all it is. It's in her apartment. I don't care. She puts it on and they fight. And it is terrible. It's so bad. It's not the worst CGI I've ever seen. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But it is far from competent. It's far from good. It is far from entertaining. It's so ugly. They made Cheetah the same color as the background. That is a movie making no-no. Just like the scene at the end of Black Panther, why that scene looks so bad, it's because you had two guys in black suits fighting against a black background. You have a grayish blue blob fighting against a dark grayish blue background. It's so ugly. And even Diana's golden, shining, Themyscirian, amazing armor, you don't really get to see it very well because the lighting is so dark because they're trying to hide the CGI. It's everything we worried it was gonna be and more. The fight is not great. The choreography is mediocre. The fight is short. It means nothing in the end. And it was just an excuse to have a big fight in the end. And it meant nothing. It had no weight behind it. You didn't feel anything, man. So, the fight ends. Diana ends up using a cord to electrocute Barbara. She's out of commission. She's on the ground, like shaking, but she's not dead. She leaves her there to go face Maxwell Lord and try to stop him. He is standing in a room with a tornado of wind around him, going crazy, just taking all these people's wishes and becoming an immortal god. And she's trying to fight the wind, and she's trying to convince him to not do it. Think about your son, think about the truth, think about all that stuff. And then she realizes that she can't do it, so she falls down. And then she starts just monologuing to Maxwell Lord's butt. She is just sitting there in this whirlwind of chaos, and she's just talking about truth and kindness and what it is to be human, and she's giving this big great speech, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? He can't hear you. Why are you speaking right now? Then it cuts down and reveals that she has her lasso of truth wrapped around his leg, and she has been actually talking to these people the whole time. It cuts to the screens that they're watching, and it's just all gold because of her lasso. And these people, seriously, every single one of them, after hearing this truth speech about being good and kind and who you really are, they start rescinding their wishes. And it is so unbelievably unbelievable. Because to them, they have no idea who this person is talking to them. It's just a random voice on the screen. You think realistically, in the real world, if billions of people made one wish to be a king, or to be rich, or to have their dead father back, or to have whatever it is, to have a new dog, a new car, to have a mansion, that somebody coming on a screen and saying, you know, you really shouldn't have done that. You should be good. Be good-hearted. Be a good person. They would go, okay, random person I don't know, I rescind my wish and everything's gonna be good. No. It was so, the fact that they were just listening to him in the first place and wishing stuff, that wouldn't have happened, but this part was even worse because why would they listen to her? They don't even know who she is. But regardless, they start rescinding their wishes, and while all of this is going on, while she's fighting CGI Cheetah, Maxwell Lord is turning into a crazy unstoppable god. There are people rioting in the streets, killing each other, wishing that people were dead, people wishing to be rich, people getting into car wrecks, utter chaos. Things are exploding. There are missiles launching from country to country, nuclear arms. It's about to be nuclear World War III. The literal end of the world is happening, and it comes out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere, happens for 20 minutes, and then it just ends. It's absolutely insane where this movie goes. And you know, one thing that I can respect about this movie is that it didn't have a bunch of references to other movies. It was its own contained story. But that actually breaks the story because they're still keeping some elements from the past DC movies. This is still established to be the Wonder Woman from this universe. But does anyone remember this? Does anybody remember the biggest catastrophe in human history? Like this is something that you would have thought of would have been like the alien invasion in New York in the Avengers. People talk about that. The incident. It's a big thing. It changes things. This was way bigger than that. But did it even happen? Is this even connected? Does anybody remember it? It's just things like that make this such a weak movie because it breaks its own rules constantly. Why didn't Diana fly in Justice League? Why did she never use that ability? Because now she has been established that she could fly 30 years ago. But in Batman vs. Superman, she gets on a plane to travel. It just totally breaks everything. There's no continuity. There's no continuity in the script itself in its own movie. It's completely and utterly embarrassing. It is an embarrassing movie that makes no sense whatsoever. And what little sense it does make is unengaging and boring. So to end the whole thing, Maxwell Lord ends up hearing his son, "Daddy, I wish you were here, I wish you were here." And he realizes, Diana's right, I gotta save my son, I've been doing this whole thing wrong. Of course, he does the right thing. And then he kind of just shows up to the White House and he's looking for his son. And his son, the last time we saw him, was crying in the streets of a riot in a random street. And then when it cuts next, he's coming out of the woods of the White House and they hug. And it doesn't make any sense how they got there, where they were. The editing was choppy, it was bad, it was forced. The moment was unbelievable. He hugs him and he's like, I'm sorry I disappointed you. And it's supposed to be this big emotional payoff. Just like the Steve and Diana moment, this one did nothing. And the child actor was not that great. The writing wasn't great. It just totally fell flat for me. You don't have to prove anything to me, Daddy. I will always love you. Ah, shut up. This sucked. So yeah, that's how it ends. And even the way that the characters' arcs end is stupid because, listen, this was one of the most heinous things that any person has ever done in human history. You think people are just going to forget this? This man is going to be tried for war crimes, for terrorism, he's going to have the book thrown at him, multiple life sentences in prison. He tells his son, I'm going to do my best to not disappoint you, and they hug, and it cuts away. And that's literally his ending. It cuts away. We don't get to see if he goes to prison. We don't see any repercussions. We don't get a full circle ending to a story. We don't know what happens. It just cuts away and it's Christmas. Kumbaya. What happened to Maxwell Lord? The guy that did the biggest destructive evil act in human history, arguably. What happens to him? No repercussions for any of that? And if there are, we don't get to see it? We just have to make up in our minds what happens to these characters. We don't get a full, satisfying ending for either villain. Barbara turns into Cheetah, fights Wonder Woman, then she gets electrocuted, we see her on the ground, then 20 minutes later, it cuts to her and she's a human again, just sitting on a rock staring at the sunset. Are you serious? So you're telling me that she just gets to make this wish, become the animal that she never wanted to be, become this evil creature, fight Wonder Woman, lose, and then she just gets to turn back into a human and stare at the sunset, and that's it? We don't know what happens to her. Does she have any repercussions? Does she go to prison? Is it on the news? Do people know what happened? Does she lose her job? Is she going to be different now? Does she turn back into Cheetah sometimes? We don't know, because they didn't show us anything. They left it so open-ended. It was so lazy. Come on, writers. You just gotta think. You gotta think about these things. And then it cuts to Christmas. Diana is walking around the snow. She's smiling. Everything's good. And then she actually sees the guy that Steve Trevor's face was on. He walks up beside her. She looks at him. He's wearing the outfit that Steve was wearing. It makes her happy. They make small talk. It's a nice little moment. But it just makes me think, what does this guy think about all this? What happened to him? He was living his life. Then randomly he became another person for a few days or a few weeks. I don't know. Did he just wake up and not remember any of it? Did he lose his job? Did he lose his friends? Did nobody wonder what happened to him? Did he think that he died? Did it feel like he was in a coma? What happened to this guy? He was somebody else for a whole couple weeks or a couple days. What is he just like, oh, what happened? I fell asleep and I woke up 3 weeks later. He missed the end of the world. Actually, he changed back. She rescinds her wish, which would have made him change back in the middle of the street of a riot. He was probably thinking, yo, what the hell is happening? But now, he's just on the street during Christmas, just looking around. We don't get to see what he went through or if it made any sense. The whole body changing thing, what happened to him? Was he a person? Is he, like, we don't get to fully understand or comprehend. They just want us to just roll with it. Just roll with it. Roll with the head. No, I'm not going to just roll with it anymore. I'm tired of just rolling with it with these bad scripts. This was a bad script and a bad movie. I'm sorry to get so angry and to start talking so fast and get passionate about it, but I can't help it. This movie was so frustrating. When I made my video a couple months back saying Wonder Woman 1984 looks bad, I truly wanted to be wrong. I even made a thumbnail saying I was wrong about Wonder Woman 1984. I was ready to like it. I was ready to be proven wrong. I wanted to be changed, my mind to be changed, and it just didn't happen. I mean, I was looking for every reason to like this movie. I was truly trying to find the good in this movie. But I just couldn't. At every turn, there was bad writing, or an inconsistency in the plot, or bad editing, or bad acting, or cheesiness, or lameness, or just complete disbelief, or breaking of the script, or breaking of the rules. Just everything was broken, tattered into pieces, and reassembled and into a big CGI, jumbled, confusing, uninteresting, wacky mess. It's not one of the absolute worst comic book movies of all time. It's not like Fantastic Four or Catwoman or Batman and Robin, but it's up there. It's probably in the top 15 or 20 worst comic book movies of all time, and that's just sad because it could have been so good, man. If you know Cheetah from the comics, which I know a little bit, she's so much more compelling than this. She doesn't just get to wish I was an apex predator and then fight Wonder Woman one time and then rescind her wish and become a human. She is cursed with this. She blames Wonder Woman on multiple occasions. She's ferocious. She hates that she is Cheetah. It's not just a little wish that she gets to do and then take back and it's all good. She wanted to be immortal, so she took this curse on, didn't realize what it brought, and now she lives in pain and suffering. This character reached nowhere near the heights of comic book Cheetah. And I'm not even a huge Cheetah fan, but I know that they screwed her up. Like, come on. The plot was ridiculous. Gal Gadot, once again, she wasn't like god awful, but she wasn't good. She wasn't believable. Steve Trevor, that whole thing was ridiculous, confusing, mind-bending, stupid. It was so unnecessary. They tried to pull at our heartstrings, but all they did was pull me out of the movie. Even the best character, Maxwell Lord, he was only great for about half of it, and then they turned him into a generic evil villain with no complexities. This movie did not know how to handle characters. It did not know how to handle action. It did not know how to handle plot or pacing or anything that you need to create a good, cohesive movie. This movie fails. This movie is wrong. You should not spend your money on this movie. If you are thinking about buying HBO Max just for this movie, please do not. Unless you are a little girl or a little kid, or you like this kind of big, dumb, Adam West fun, and you genuinely just want to have a good time, I would say watch it then. But if you truly want more, if you want a great superhero movie, a great film, even a good film, this is not for you. Stay away. I think this movie is going to get worse and worse with time, and I'm probably gonna hate it even more if I watch it again, which I probably never will. But this movie is one of those movies that is probably gonna get worse and worse and more dated and ugly looking and just bad, and we're gonna look back on this as an all-time stinker. Only because it had a couple of good scenes, a couple of truly good moments, a decent score, and a couple of good characters. Wonder Woman 1984 gets a 3 out of 10 from me. Man, that was a struggle watching it, and it was a struggle talking about it. But more importantly than what I think, I would like to know what you thought about this. Have you watched it yet? Are you gonna watch it? Did you pay to watch it? I want to know what you thought. I want to know your feelings. Were you excited? Were you disappointed? Did this movie live up to your expectations, or did it extremely disappoint you like it did me? I would love to know in the comments. And you know what? I don't care if you enjoyed this movie and you tear into me. You know what? I don't care, because I know what I saw, I know what I felt, and I know that that was not a good movie. And I truly hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found the good in it. You found the happiness, maybe the flying scene, the lassoing, the action, the whole spirit of it. Maybe it got you going. Maybe it made your daughter happy. Maybe it made you smile. That's okay. I love if that happened for you. That just didn't happen for me. And you know, it is what it is. So, there it is. I was really hoping to enjoy this movie. Man, I was really wanting to watch a good movie last night, but I watched a bad film. I might even go as far as saying I watched a pretty terrible film. And you know, that's a shame, because DC has some incredible characters. Characters just as good as Marvel. So there's no excuse for these movies to be this bad. They keep taking 1 or 2 steps forward and then 10 steps backwards. Alright guys, I guess I'm done here. Getting a little hot, getting a little heated, and you know, I'm ready to stop talking about this now. I want this whole thing to be in my past. You know what? I wish it never happened. But it did, and I'm sad. Alright guys, that's it for me today. If you watched all the way to this point, I truly, truly appreciate you. I appreciate whether you like it or dislike it, Whether you like my opinion, you dislike it, if you hate me, you like me, if you're subscribed, I don't care. Every second that you watch, I appreciate it. I implore you to hit that like button if you liked the video, hit the dislike if you didn't like it, and maybe subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Alright, I hope you're staying safe out there, and until we meet again, peace! Hey! If you like this video, and you want to see more of my ridiculous content, check out one of these. Maybe you'll enjoy yourself, or maybe you'll watch it and crap your pants. Click one and let's find out.